Pro Wrestling Review, and if you're like us and watch the Steeler game, you don't have anything to add to our conversation about pro wrestling this week. I'm Rennie DETORE from the Tribune Review.
I'm KRASMAN from the Daily News.
I'm DABRUZZO, and I think, well, everyone in this area watches the Steeler game.
Including you.
He just came back from tailgating.
That's right. 14 hours of tailgating before and after the game.
And once again, I'm inconsequential.
Is that 2 words for
Mr.
you?
Inconsolable.
Oh, no.
That's next to
We won't get into that.
The movie script that needs to be made. Actually, this week, despite the Steelers' big win over the Titans, I know Jim's excited. He hasn't changed since yesterday. Or actually, it's been a week.
I was in my Pete Gonzalez jersey Monday. Thank you very much.
Oh, I thought he was going to get in, even though he doesn't play for me, I think.
Yeah,
Does he?
I think he plays for Buffalo now.
Right, but
No,
I still thought he was going to get in.
That's right. He could start for Kansas City, I'm sure.
He's slinging coal.
Here we go. It's like ESPN though.
Yeah.
But anyway, we're going to talk a little bit about Raw. Obviously, we saw the big Kurt Angle heel turn. We don't know why it happened, but we're going to get into that. And we also have some mail to do. And we're also going to talk a little bit about what some of our ideas about how to make the WWF a little bit better. And this includes the hotjobs.com fiasco. But I don't know if anyone else has anything to add. If not,
Let's just go black and white.
we're going to go black and white. And we're going to get drink. Whoa, what was that? Okay, we're going to do something. But we're going to be back and we're going to talk wrestling. So stay tuned. This segment about Raw and Kurt Angle's big heel turn. Before, I know you posted a column, Brian, on the website about this entire thing, but
Yeah.
before we get into the details of it, one thing I will say, at least Raw had somewhat of a theme to it with Angle, or maybe not so much Angle, but the WWF hyping, well, somebody from the Alliance, or someone's going to jump the Alliance from the WWF. So I guess in that respect, the show had a little bit more direction, but again, the payoff wasn't what we quite expected.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, you can say that. They did build up the surprise, but, you know, sometimes it's sort of like the Cobra and Elizabeth and Randy Savage's wedding gift. It just wasn't a good surprise. I mean, it made people like Sid Vicious freak out, almost like the Snake. It just was really stupid. It was about the dumbest move I could possibly think of. You know, let's just look at the chain of logic that is lacking here. Kurt Angle, over the last 3 months, A, feuding with Steve Austin. B, beat the crap out of Shane McMahon at King of the Ring. C, was costed the WWF title by William Regal, what, 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago? So naturally, he should join him.
Well, you know what? I think the WWF probably on SmackDown, of course, it hasn't aired yet as of this taping, but they're probably gonna do that whole well, Steve Austin and I respect one another, which I think is such a scapegoat excuse when it comes to turning somebody from one side to another. So, you know, in that respect, I think it's kind of just like another typical WWF. Let's do this just because no one would expect Angle, but nobody wants Angle to turn either.
It's very similar to the WCW bonus matches on pay-per-views. We got treated to the wall and Buff Bagwell over the wall and the Kiwi or whatever the hell his name was. Sometimes surprises suck, and this one truly fit that bill. Here's the case in point. Angle is a better heel than a face. Do you agree?
Right.
The thing is, you don't have to turn him in an illogical move as last Monday on Raw to get that heel. Save it. Save it for next year. Save it for never. Who the hell cares?
Well,
you don't need to do it just to provide something for the viewers. Oh, there was a turn last night.
And I think that's why a lot of people that reviewed Raw on various websites said that they really liked this edition of Raw with Kurt Angle turning. I think it's just because people have been, you know, thirsting for just something to happen, something worth talking about.
Thirsting?
Yeah.
Okay.
What the hell? Just talking about, you know, something that they want to see happen and something big happen. And in this case, it was Angle's turn. But if you look at all the guys that they had to pick from, I mean, obviously Jericho was too obvious. Mm-hmm. The Rock wouldn't have been a bad choice, but again, we've talked about before, the Scorpion King prohibits him from doing anything interesting. The other person I think would have been a better choice would have been The Undertaker, based on what he said to Vince McMahon. So, again, people reacted differently to this. The people who were obviously saw it for what it was is nothing more than a hot shot move, saw it and said, I don't like it. And other people said, well, at least they're doing something for the sake of doing something. I think that's just because fans are they want something to happen on Raw, and that's what they got.
Well, just to draw on the Chris Jericho example that you brought up, that's true. It was a little obvious, but so what? I mean, they did. You know, if you're going to go on the idea of what's obvious and what's not, then okay, don't have Chris Jericho attack The Rock during their tag team match, making it look like that's what's going to happen, because it worked. I mean, Chris Jericho got some serious heel heat for the first time in his program with The Rock. Therefore, it made it look like him turning was the right thing to do because people already bought it. And then it was like, That was just another match right there. There was just no sense at all. He beats up The Rock, then he beats up Test, and it's like, you know, what is going on? There's just no sense to any of this stuff.
I agree. At least we weren't treated to Linda or Vince McMahon turning heel for the upteenth time on their own kids, on their own company and whatnot, even though Vince in this case probably would have been equally as bad, I would have to say, turning against his own company and siding with another one. It just, I don't know. For a surprise for the sake of a surprise is not a surprise. It's hey, it's no good.
That's the other thing, too, that a lot of people pointed to as being positive. Well, they're like, well, now Kurt Angle and Steve Austin can rekindle that humor that they had a few weeks ago, or a few months ago, I should say, on SmackDown and Raw, and Angle can go back to being the goofy heel. I don't think that can be the case.
Yeah.
Because Angle was such a badass face for so many months, getting over his ankle lock and feuding with Steve Austin. How can he go back and just forget about what happened the last 3 months, start playing the goofball, and having comic interactions with Steve Austin? It doesn't make any sense.
Well, you know,
You should move forward with this character, which they were doing.
I agree with you. You also have the Eric Bischoff quote. Well, this whole thing's an Eric Bischoff quotient, pretty much, that you have to take into effect. Every time Eric Bischoff would do a big angle, everybody would say, maybe he's a double agent. So maybe Kurt Angle's a double agent.
If that's not the case, this is the same Steve Austin that broke Kurt Angle's neck, or should I say injured it, threw his medals off a bridge, which that right there is inexcusable. An Angle pushing him into, almost throwing him off another bridge into a kiddie pool. How do you forgive somebody for pushing you into a kiddie pool? It's beyond me.
Well, obviously Austin will give Angle his medals back, because I think we all know he didn't really throw him into the river.
Oh, he didn't?
No.
It's like, who shot JR? I wasn't informed.
I thought our special teams member had something to say from the other studio.
We iced the kicker. That's why there's that big spot over there.
Yeah. Does our we're going to go to special teams?
Wait, we got him on a bad,
He was holding the magazine like, oh my God, nobody's supposed to see this. He's in the other studio. We thought he had something to say.
Yeah. Someone throw a flag
There
at
he
him.
is.
Well, hi. I'm just reading the new Raw magazine with The Rock. I disagree with you a little bit. Getting into the Rock Jericho thing, before we get into a full-blown discussion with Raw, I kind of like this Rock Jericho thing because, you know, it's two guys who just don't like each other, kind of be forced together as a team. You almost never see that. And, I mean, you don't have to turn Jericho because I think it's pointless if you do. I say just let this tag team play out, and you know eventually they will lose the tag titles. Hopefully, someone that deserves them. And
Bushwhackers.
And then once all they lose the tag titles, they'll feud over the WCW title again, and I think it'll work out pretty well.
And we'd like to point out the fact, even though we did hate the Kurt Angle turn, a lot of the viewers out there, if you don't like it, don't watch it. Well, we didn't. We watched most of the Steeler games, so maybe I caught about 10, 15 minutes of Raw, and it was the worst part of Raw. I actually caught, I think Test was on, and I'm starting to actually believe, Jim, that Test is probably one of the...
Oh, my goodness.
No
There's
fault-
a real bombshell right
my.
there.
It no fault of his own. They just don't do anything with him. He's like Albert. Let's get alone on his size and his cool little piercings. That doesn't work.
And his bald head.
Unless you're the Bushwhackers.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to talk more about the Bushwhackers when we come back, but we're also going to talk a little bit more about some of the stuff that happened on Raw. So come back.
Shellac the Titans Monday night instead of, well, watching the WWF shellac its product. But we're going to get into a little bit more of that right now. And you know what? I'm just going to bring something up that particularly bothered me, and this is just sort of like the WCW careless booking. Lita against, what's her name?
Stacy.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, pointless match, 3 minutes of crap, but here's the problem. The whole point is they're doing this whole thing with Matt Hardy, about like, is he unfaithful to Lita? Is he not? Does anybody care? So what does he do? He elbows Lita in the face during the match, thus supposedly setting up Stacy getting the big win. But no, she kicks out and, of course, gets the victory and chews out Matt Hardy at the end of the match. Why? You won the match. Doesn't it make more sense that if you get elbowed in the face and pinned,
You should lose.
you should lose?
Well, I agree with you, but if and we're going to get to this a little bit later, but if you go to hotjobs.com and you want to be a TV writer for the WWF, you have to have soap opera writing experience. Unfortunately, no one on this panel, including Tom, who's absent for this segment, has worked on Days of Our Lives, so we don't have that experience, but we do watch wrestling. We do have
Yes.
some semblance of how to develop a character
Yeah.
and things of that sort. So, obviously, our names have been off the list.
Well, I thought the idea was for Jeff Hardy.
Matt Hardy.
Matt Hardy, yeah, who cares? But I thought the idea was he was supposed to be like this, all the women are going to
Smooth operator.
Yeah, I thought that was the direction they were going to go with this. Lita was going to get jealous backstage, and then they could lead to a match.
Jim, you don't expect them to do things in order,
And
do you?
that's like a storyline there, though. It may be a soap opera style storyline, but a storyline nonetheless. Sorry, you guys okay?
Yeah, actually,
Like logic. you
we're
know?
gonna
Oh,
talk.
I'm sorry, did I confuse you, man?
Logic.
I apologize.
We're going to talk a little bit later in the show about some of the ideas that we have for the WWF, and that actually, you brought up the point about Lita. I actually have an idea for her character, which pertains to another Alliance member.
Teach her how to wrestle?
That'd be a great idea.
You just let it happen. Okay, but one of the other things we talked about just briefly last time was Booker T and Test wrestled The Rock and Chris Jericho, and I just thought it was kind of funny that Booker T and Test, this cohesive unit, couldn't defeat two guys having a match within a match.
Yeah, right.
And it's just another one of those things you look at Booker T and you say, oh, what has he done? Whose gym bag did he urinate in?
Yeah.
Is there a problem here that we don't see that a guy in his mid-30s who has talent needs to be pushed? He's actually one guy I can look at in the Alliance and say, I wish he was in the old WCW because they actually pushed him better. I can't believe I'm saying that.
Well,
You can say that about.
Sorry, we were distracted by a picture of the Iron Sheik giving birth off camera.
You can say that about the whole Alliance angle. I mean, everything you can look at from point A to point wherever the hell they're at now is, boy, if they'd only done this, if they'd only done that. And you get to the point where, Kurt Angle turning heel and joining the Alliance was necessary because nobody's built to the point of credibility. Nobody there like a Booker T or, even a Test for that matter, who's like the WWF's brainchild, or, even Rob Van Dam, are credible enough that they can go out and carry the Alliance, without Steve Austin or carry it with Steve Austin. And that's the problem. The WWF was supposed to be so smart and so ingenious that they were able to take somebody like a Booker T that had all that athletic ability and whip him into a superstar. And they haven't done it. They've failed completely.
Honestly, I think the bigger problem is, and I think Rennie has brought up more than anyone on the show, I think the problem is de-emphasizing guys after they get to a certain point.
Right.
Booker T was ready to go. I mean, it was more than just the talent at this point. It was the charisma, it was the mic skills. He was actually starting to develop even better. At least I thought so.
Well,
And
the
then
thing
nothing.
is, you talk about that. The last Nitro, he beat Scott Steiner, who a lot of people consider WCW's best heel at the time. Well, only heel if you count a Ric Flair who's wearing a T-shirt while he wrestles. But Scott Steiner was the biggest heel they had. He beats him, wins the world title. He's supposed to be, the big WCW franchise player, and he comes in and The Rock's like, see ya, just completely destroys him. I just don't understand that at all.
Well, I think it's just because it's The Rock.
I don't care,
There's
but
different rules. I hate to say this, but there's different rules that apply to The Rock.
That's
Should
crap.
should Booker T have won those matches? No. Should Booker T have had a better showing during the matches and afterwards, after the feud with Rock was over? Absolutely. Losing to The Rock is not what did Booker T in at this point. It's what happened afterwards.
Yeah, The
Yeah,
Rock
I
made him
agree.
look bad.
That's not what people remember. People remember him taking on The Rock. And
No,
I'm sorry,
see, I disagree
him
with
taking
that.
on The Rock, Booker T can't win. He takes on The Rock and loses. Yeah, they should have done it a little better, but it's The Rock.
You know what,
This is The Rock, and this is everybody else.
I agree with some of that. I agree with some of what each of you were saying. I don't necessarily think that Booker T had to beat The Rock in any of those matches, but they had to take Booker T to that next level, even though, getting into the ring and being with The Rock at SummerSlam was a big deal. There's no way in hell Booker T should have lost to The Undertaker at No Mercy. There is nothing anybody could say to justify that and to make that make sense. It makes no sense. You had Test beat Kane, right? Which, I guess you had to have one guy win and one guy lose on that tag team singles feud. Test can take the loss. Booker T can't. Booker T needed to beat The Undertaker, and the WWF failed, and that was it. That was the last thing they could have really done to save him.
And just to tie in, even before that, just what I was saying, there's no reason why Booker T doesn't beat The Rock in a tag match at some point in that feud.
Right.
Well, you bring that up. What about the handicap match, Booker T and Shane McMahon against The Rock? I
absolutely.
understand you want The Rock to keep the WCW title for credibility purposes for the belt, but, and we've talked about this before, why did Shane McMahon not take the pinfall?
Exactly.
What is the big deal? I realize Shane, the Dudleys, and The Rock are all buddies. They all travel together, but it makes no sense to have a non-wrestler, not that Shane can't perform when called upon, but why does he not take the fall? Why does Booker T get pinned?
I agree with you there.
I-
It
that- that just completely
getting
blows
back
my
to
mind.
The Undertaker, it just, no, you can't. First of all, there was no story before or after that. That's what hurt even more, even losing relatively clean to The Undertaker. But there's no build-up.
Relatively clean.
Yeah.
He got pinned.
I've
I
been
mean, that was
generous.
it. There
No,
wasn't
you're
no
right.
run-ins, no anything.
You're
no
absolutely,
bones about
that really hurt him there.
And Booker T's to the point right now where they've de-emphasized him. It's to the point now where he's sort of, he's on the downswing. I mean, I just don't see that big momentum swing that he's going to need to really push him to the level he should be at. I don't see it set up for him. It's not on the table. And sorry, Booker T. You should have been a superstar, but, sorry. So I guess we're going to come back and talk a little bit more about some of the goings-on. And Tom is in the other room applying for a job on Hot Jobs. So we'll be back after this.
We'd like to take the time because, well, did you guys review Raw? I was in the other room. Actually,
No.
I was in another,
You
undisclosed
were in the
location.
catering truck with the key grips. Right?
Yeah, that's right. I went nuts on the finger sandwiches, whatever the hell they had in there that was edible. But these next two segments we'd like to devote to big ideas that could change the WWF indefinitely. And as you see right here, this is one of those big ideas that just didn't take off. And the original cover of the book, as Rennie alluded to on the Christmas show, I believe, last year,
that
was just
long
JR
ago.
and
Yeah,
Austin.
I tried a couple of those recipes. Man.
The hot
And
dogs
don't
were.
forget to make room for The Rock's favorite chocolate chip cookies. The recipe, go out to the store and buy Chip Ahoy's. Anyway, notwithstanding
Is that the 2-pound
jargon
bag or
and
the
crap.
4-pound bag?
I don't know.
Well, I
They
think
make-
it on paperback.
What?
No, I'm just being.
It's like,
Have you ever seen a cookbook in paperback, though?
No, I'm kidding.
Oh.
I can trade paperback.
I think you guys are doing a
Did
good
you see
job.
the Bob Hall? I think it was either Bob or Crash Hall, whoever.
Here we
A
go.
recipe for Jello shooters. Do you need a recipe for Jello shooters?
Nope, you really don't.
Okay, Emerald, we can settle down over there. We're going to get back to wrestling here. That's okay.
Yeah.
I think you guys have alluded to our point, the fact that a lot of people sometimes send us mail and say, you guys are just critical of everything. You don't do anything positive, like
We
Diamond Dallas
don't.
Page.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to attempt to change
Hey.
that with this segment. We're going to have a lot of positive, constructive ideas for the WWF. So take it away.
We have
And you know
none.
what?
Before you say that, I also would like to point out, in addition to that,
Okay.
we also get a lot of emails saying that we can't take constructive criticism, which I don't think is true
No,
because
we
we
actually-
don't get any.
To be specific, we get a lot of posts on the website that say that, not really many emails.
Right. Here's the thing. We say the same thing. If people have positive, not positive, necessarily saying you guys are great, but constructive criticism of ways to help the show get better, we would like to hear that. If you're going to call us pricks somewhere in the email, we don't
Whoops.
want to hear that, but we just want to know ideas,
So no more-
like we're going to
no
do
more-
right now.
No more homosexual jokes about Tom, then.
No.
Okay.
Oh, I didn't know that there were any,
There's a
Jim.
couple on your page I took off. I don't know, just-
Oh,
Maybe
really?
we'll get more
Yeah.
into the actual mail part during viewer mail.
Yeah, we just wanted to set
Let
the
me-
stage.
Let me throw out an idea here, and I think this kind of ties in.
I'm going to catch it. Kick it to me.
Actually, punt it.
Okay. This kind of ties into the idea of de-emphasizing the problem that WWF seems to have. And this is a very basic idea, and I'm sure we can kick it around and try and make it better.
Kick around, huh?
No pun intended, actually.
No punt intended.
That is so obvious.
I know.
But I think the best way to go about it is get a list of A and B wrestlers that are going to appear on Raw, and their stories are going to appear on Raw, and maybe get a group of C wrestlers that are going to appear on SmackDown. I mean, a group of D wrestlers are going to appear on the weekend shows, if all not highlight shows. Like, obviously, you're going to have the guys like The Rock and Austin on both shows, and you'll see highlights of them. But I'm sorry, like the Hurricane. I don't think his story right now, under this very basic and general plan that I'm giving, I don't think he deserves to be on Raw. If, again, Raw is your main show. I don't think his story and his character deserve to be on Raw right now.
So you're kind of talking about how you have A and B shows, like for house shows. You're talking about A and B TV shows, and then you get into
Some
C and
degree.
D.
That sounds a little too serious, but maybe Chris Jericho can appear on Raw one week. Okay, maybe he's a little too high up right now. I don't know, the Acolytes. Let's take them. Maybe if they get into a story or a feud,
I think I know what you're saying.
they go into SmackDown. They don't necessarily have to be on Raw. Maybe their monologue this Monday can be on Raw, but maybe their match will be on SmackDown.
I think I know what you're saying, and I agree with you to an extent. Well, actually, I agree with you a lot on this. Going back to the Hurricane, somebody like that, whose character it's still sort of in development. I mean, it's established as a superhero. It's established Molly's sort of a superhero sidekick, but there's not a whole wealth of things you can do with them. I mean, it's not like, you can put them on Raw and SmackDown every single week and always come up with something creative. So maybe if you just put them on SmackDown every week, that's one idea you have to come up with per week to have them do and have them execute, and that's that.
And even in that case, I think the Hurricane's strong enough right now. He can go in a ring with, I don't know, Billy Kidman, who has been off TV in a while. They can put on a good match. Maybe, heaven forbid, maybe the fans get behind one of these guys on SmackDown.
Heaven forbid.
And the thing with the Taz this past Monday on Raw, I thought that was an enjoyable segment with him and Austin. I thought it was humorous. But number one, if you're not doing a story with him, that doesn't have to appear on Raw. I mean, that's something. That's something on SmackDown. Maybe it gets people talking the next day. Hey, Taz had an interesting segment on SmackDown. We'll see Taz next week on SmackDown in a match.
Well, that's one of the things that they have been guilty of doing, and that's taking somebody like a Taz and maybe having him interact with Austin for 2 weeks, and then for the next 3 weeks you don't see him. Yeah. So it's like, you kind of have to, maybe like you said, map out a plan of what you want to do.
Austin's going to be on both shows, obviously. That's something. Taz appears on SmackDown, and you just give him something to do on SmackDown every week, whether it's a story or a feud, or having monologues with Austin every week. And on Raw, you're not going to have to say, oh, we have to rush through Taz's segment now. And obviously that will hurt him or anyone. I'm just throwing Taz as an example. But
right.
That's about it I have. So.
I had a couple good ideas, but they really sucked, so I'm going to go with this one. It wasn't too bad. How about guys that have come over with the Alliance, like, say, Mike Awesome, Lance Storm, whoever? I realize when they get to the WWF treats them like they have no past, as they've done in the past, with a guy coming like a Ric Flair from the NWA, well, WCW at the time when he came in '92, and, well, Ric Flair had no previous past except that with the WWF at the current time. They own the library, the old WCW and, I believe, NWA. Show some backstory. Show why Mike Awesome's a badass. Show why Lance Storm's a Canadian hero. It might just work.
Well, to go along with that point that you made, and it's about character development, a few years back they did it with Mick Foley and Dustin Runnels. They took them and had sit-down interviews with them, and they gave fans a reason to care about their characters. They said, you know what, here's Mick Foley, and this is why he acts like Mankind. Or this is Dustin Runnels, and this is why he's proud to be Goldust, and why he's proud that Dusty Rhodes is his father. Things like that at least bring up the past, give people a reason to say, you know what, he's Goldust, he wears a wig, he paints his face, he's androgynous. Wow, that was uncanny. But there's still a reason there to care about him when he sheds tears saying he wants his father's respect. That's compelling television, not Saturn putting his mop into a wood chipper. That's stupid.
I'll follow up on that idea, but we're running short on time here.
All right, well, we're going to come back and we're going to throw around some more ideas, so please come back.
All 4 questions correctly, and these were the questions. The first one, the Rock Triple H Iron Man match at Judgment Day 2000 ended when special referee Shawn Michaels DQ'd The Rock due to the interference of the returning Undertaker. The second question, Christian beat Taka Michinoku to win the light heavyweight title. Question 3, some matches from WrestleMania 4 World Title Tournament were Hulk Hogan versus Andre the Giant, Ted DiBiase versus Hacksaw Jim Duggan, Rick Rude versus Jake Roberts, Greg Valentine versus Rick Steamboat, and One Man Gang versus Bam Bam Bigelow. And the fourth question, the original 4 horsemen were Ric Flair, Arn Anderson, Ole Anderson, and Tully Blanchard. Good job, Joe. And of course, you win a 1-topping large pizza and a 2-liter beverage of your choice, an order of wings, all from Pizza Works in Drabosburg. Congratulations again. Now, people, next week's question is this. Who did Jeff Jarrett lose the Intercontinental title to at the July 1995 In Your House? Once again, get onto our website, www.prowrestlingreview.com. Click onto trivia and answer all 3 questions there, plus the one I just gave you. And don't forget to also, when you submit that, include your name and address. 2 important things. Once again, that question, who did Jeff Jarrett lose the Intercontinental title to at the July 1995 In Your House? Well, that's it, and good luck.
How much highlights of Raw and SmackDown there are, but that's a place to do that. Maybe, I hate to keep going back to my idea, but if you show something
No, you don't.
No, I don't really. It's a good idea. But no, I mean, if you show a Mike, like Tom said, a Mike Awesome highlight clip where he's, I don't know, throwing ICP off a bus or something, and then you give him a story where he can appear on SmackDown every week or Jacked or whatever it is on Saturday.
You have those brilliant Hollywood soap opera TV writers that, unless the fans are treated to a mop going into a tree shredder every 5 seconds, they're not going to be entertained. They're going to turn the channel off. Unfortunately, the diehard pro wrestling fans would like to see stuff like this.
See, that's the thing, though. I mean, I think wrestling popularity right now is boiling down to its, as a term you used before, its core essence. guys who will watch Chris Benoit and Billy Kidman go for 25 minutes. Why not appeal to them and give Mike Austin the behind-the-scenes interview or the highlight package? Or
Well, they do have this really crappy show on Saturdays called Excess that they've been showing, like Jeff Hardy rock climbing.
Nobody freaking watches it.
Maybe we could actually show some interviews with a guy like Lance Storm.
Yeah.
You know what? This thing right up here.
That's
This actually has some decent articles on some of the wrestlers, but why they can't translate that into TV, I don't know why.
It doesn't tie anything consistent though. You see Mike Austin 1 week, and that's fine. And even Chuck Palumbo. Let's use him as an example.
Yeah.
Every once in a while, he surfaces. And
Yes.
wow, that was a close-up. I mean, Chuck Palumbo, who I'm sure is getting better, and I'm sure needs time to improve. But do something with him on the weekend shows.
Well, you mentioned consistency, and I think that's another thing at least I'd like to see. I mean, obviously the writing team needs more consistency, but that's easy to say. I mean, that's easy to just come out and say, well, they need to be more consistent. Well, no kidding. Number one, Stephanie McMahon just needs to leave. I mean, not leave the company. Obviously, she owns part of it, but she just cannot be writing television anymore. We've gotten to the point where it's dangerous when a booker just constantly puts herself on television or himself on television, and she's gotten to that point, and that's bad. They need wrestling people there. Now, on the same level, like I said, it's easy to say that that they need more consistency. How do you do that? I think that, like we mentioned before about having a Team A or Team B or Show A and Show B, I think you need to start taking some of the wrestlers that every now and again you pop out there on a Monday night, like a Hugh Morris or a Canyon or whoever, who you really don't have any plans for, and just don't do anything with them. I mean, I don't know if it means release them. I don't know if it means, send them to the minor leagues, just put them on heat or whatever. I think that the WWF needs to sit down and figure out maybe 20 to 25 guys, that might even be too much, where they can sit down and say, who are our top 20 or 25 guys? And when they sit down and they figure out who those people are, go with those people for Raw and SmackDown. This is your company. This is your core. These are the people that we are going to, all of our stories are going to revolve around, that our title situation is going to revolve around. These are the people we're going to work with. And stop worrying about having to throw Hugh Morris on television or having to throw a women's match on television that isn't any good and that, it's just sent out there for filler. Decide who your roster is going to be and focus on it.
I can agree with that point, but one of the guys that you did bring up, Canyon, I actually, on the way down to the taping, I came up with an idea for Canyon. I'd actually like to see him with this whole Lita storyline and maybe start a feud with Matt and then have Lita eventually leave Matt for Chris Canyon and then have Canyon cut promos, because obviously Canyon's not a serious character. Have him be a goofball character and question Lita herself. Why did you even join me? You go, I'm not that attractive. I'm not that good of a wrestler. Why are you even with me? Yeah. And then have Lita, maybe the same thing like she did with Malenko when they were in the hotel room together. Have Canyon, come on to Canyon and him be nervous and not know what to do, and then turn around the corner into the bathroom and there's Mr. Positive DDP to give him lessons on what to do back in the bedroom.
Oh, that would be great. That would be great.
You know what?
That's a damn good idea.
I think that would be a great thing for Chris Canyon. The guy can wrestle. He can feud with Matt Hardy. Maybe teach him how to wrestle. And the thing of it is, I could just see Canyon, in that lispy voice say, "Please, Lita, just stay away from me. I'm not that good. I'm not that attractive." Yeah. I think that would be hilarious, and that's the kind of stuff that I want to see.
But Rennie, you're not you have no soap opera experience.
I know.
That idea completely sucks, and you know it does because you weren't writing for The Bold and the Beautiful.
Yeah. I'm just saddened that DDP has to take a part in this, and actually,
but the thing is, it would be good.
It would be a productive part of it. That's really frightening.
Rather than I'm sorry, I was just going to allude to the fact DDP coming out and getting chokeslammed by big guys. How many big guys are left? Yeah. It can only last for 3 more weeks.
Maybe Mike Awesome will come out.
Who?
Mike Awesome, big guy.
Well, another thing too, and this gets to where you can't get a soap opera writer to do stuff like this. You're going to need more of a wrestling mind. Are the title belts, and we've said this a million times on this show and on the website, that these belts are to the point now where they don't mean anything. And a lot of people were complaining, myself included, that they just sent Rob Van Dam out to just do a job to Edge in an Intercontinental title match that wasn't even promoted. And I agree with that. I said it myself, as I said. But at the same time, no title matches ever really seem to mean anything anymore because there's 17 of them. And you can't have the U.S. title and the Intercontinental titles both seem important when they're basically the same thing. And you can't have 2 cruiserweight titles and 2 tag titles because it waters everything down. They need to decide what belts are important, what belts aren't, and start focusing on it and make these matches and make these belts seem like they mean something.
I can't disagree with that. So we're gonna So damn it, don't. We're gonna come back and we're gonna do some viewer mail and get your take on some of your opinions. So come back. Jeff Jarrett sucks, and I'm going to have to disagree with you. If you read my column from last week's Tribune Review, I talked a little bit about Jeff Jarrett and why I think he's one of the good guys, I guess you can say, in wrestling. You know, I don't think it would hurt Vince McMahon and maybe even Jim Ross to put their differences aside with Jeff and sign him to a contract. The guy's a good worker. He's, you know, carried guys like Sid through WCW title matches, even though Sid painfully obvious that he's horrible. So I just think that's one of those guys that he's a solid worker, he's a solid person. Just, you know, give him a chance, sign him to a contract. I don't see what the big deal is.
You'll see him eventually, I think, with WWF again.
Well, the thing is, and I wrote this in the column, was the fact that when he left the WWF, he said he'd never come back as long as Jim Ross was there, and I think that's kind of petty.
Well, we've also learned no bridges ever really burned in wrestling.
Well, we can thank Shane Douglas for that one. So,
You want me to go, or do you want to read away there?
I'll read away.
All right, read away.
This is about music in the WWF. It might just be me, but when the WWF chooses a theme song for their pay-per-view, like My Way or that Click Click Boom song, you freaking play it 1,000 times.
it actually sounds like you writing that.
It really does. If I was the band, I'd be pissed off because WWF just wears the hell out of that song. Well, I guess it ties in with how much they promote the pay-per-view, which is a lot, obviously. I don't know. I don't think the band's mind. I mean, it's probably a situation where it helps both the band and the WWF. Obviously, the WWF wants more mainstream audience. And
Maybe to elaborate on
yes,
that.
signing Limp Bizkit would do that, I guess.
To elaborate on that letter a little bit, the WWF's new group, I guess they just incorporated, I don't know for how long, is Creed, which just goes to show that the band will sell their songs to anyone, whether it's a movie, whether it's a person who has a couple bucks in their pocket. Creed truly, which I don't even
As a
mind
matter of
Creed
fact,
that
I have
much.
a couple bucks in my pocket.
Oh, hey, maybe we can
I
use
can
it
get
for
a
the
Creed
opening of the
song.
show. The
That's
song's
true.
getting old, but I don't know where I was going with that. But this letter is from John Queen, concerns the Big Show, basically comparing him with Andre the Giant, saying the Big Show is far better than Andre was even in Andre's prime, which I kind of disagree with. Andre, he writes that Andre had no charisma. He always had a mouthpiece to do the talking for him. That's true, but Andre's charisma, back in the day, mind you, was his height. A guy in Andre's prime doing drop kicks, wrestling obviously not a Hardy Boy style or even a contemporary style, just a brawler, but his size was what sold Andre. I mean, people just loved to see him. He was a face all his career until, well,
They use the phrase
late
gentle
80s.
giants, but that's kind of the way they played him off outside the ring.
Yeah, I would agree. And the fact that it was a different time in wrestling way back then, I mean, guys really didn't talk unless he was your world champion, and even times out of that, he didn't, unless you were Ric Flair or whoever the hell you want to allude to, put in here, didn't really talk. Big Show, I think there is something to be made out of him, as Rennie has talked about, we've all talked about before. He may be 6 months away from a world title, maybe a year away, but that's all up to, I know you disagree, but that's all up to Big
don't wanna
Show.
get me started.
More importantly, it's up to the soap opera writers.
You talk about Andre, you got the Princess Bride and Waterboy for the Big Show. No comparison.
Well, Sevic or whatever his name was a
Fezzik.
compelling character.
The thing with Andre also, there was also, again, I hate to use the phrase urban legend, but there's a lot of stories about him outside the ring. Not derogatory stories, but something like
About
drinking-
driving
Just
it
added
right.
to his
drinking,
allure.
yeah,
It added
drinking
to
a
his
bottle of wine and sitting of eating, just drinking a whole bottle of wine himself.
Yeah.
It's things that added to the legend.
Yeah, the Big Show stories, he smokes a carton of cigarettes. Well, who the hell cares?
Yeah, and he has a cougar in his house or something. I don't know. I remember the pictorial on Raw, but
hell.
we should move on.
Wow.
Well, somebody in Studio 12 has something to say.
It's Brian.
Pulling
Okay.
yourself from the buffet table.
Cougars, huh? I thought it was caribou.
Ooh.
Yeah, hey,
Or elk.
scary, scary. We got a letter from somebody. I don't have the name here. Anyway, the question is very quite simply. I just wanted to know who all your favorite wrestlers are. Tom, I know yours is The Rock. Well, anyway, other than the Hands of Stone Ronnie Garvin, I have several favorite wrestlers. Actually, currently, probably the guy I enjoy watching the most would be Chris Benoit, who unfortunately is on the shelf. I enjoy his work. But as I was a kid, actually, growing up, my favorite wrestler was Magnum TA, who most of you probably don't remember unless you're
Who?
like me. Yeah. But it was kind of ridiculous because one story I can remember in particular, I was probably like 10 or 11 years old, and when NWA World Championship Wrestling used to be on at 10 o'clock in the morning on Channel 53 locally, the big main event of this show was Magnum TA going up against Wahoo McDaniel for the U.S. title. It was like a big deal because, at the time, when you're that young, you think the heels can beat anybody. So I was so shocked that Magnum TA actually beat Wahoo McDaniel with a belly-to-belly suplex for the U.S. title. I called my friend Dennis, and we were screaming like little girls for like the next 5 minutes. So there you go. I've shot my manhood to hell. Not like that needed.
You know what,
Yeah,
Brian?
but the thing is, there's no stories right now, this day and age in wrestling, that you can tell like that. Like to actually get excited. Oh my God, somebody came back. Somebody beat him.
Yeah.
So hey, the
It's
good old days
it's a
are the
different
best.
era, though. I mean, I don't know if you can do it, but it's possible.
Well, when the
It's all about
NWO debuted,
entertainment, and
maybe.
soap operas, and dramas, and who
is there
killed who and
anything
who slept.
gag with the soap opera thing I'm missing?
No, I
No.
don't think so.
Okay, just
But Brian said like 3 things in that anecdote about Wahoo McDaniel and Magnum TA that actually, there was a lot of good points in there about some of the stuff that WWF should be doing. But we don't want to get off on that. We already finished that part
we're not
of the
going to
show.
be negative this segment.
Right. So we're going to get out of this segment. We always appreciate your viewer mail. Jim, why don't you tell them where they can send more viewer mail?
That's right. If you want to send us mail, it's prowrestlingreview@lycos.com. You can also post on individual pages, and we have several comments printed out today, and we'll sure to get to them soon.
And if you're falling a little short on constructive criticism, please be creative at least.
Yeah, whoever wrote the Big Show comment about my writing a column compared to the Big Show's work rate, that was rather amusing.
I didn't happen to see that one, but again, we always appreciate your creativity when it's done in a tasteful manner. So we're going to come back,
Sometimes.
right? Even though, well, never mind, we're not going to get into that. We're going to come back and we're going to do our always tasteful rants. So please stay with us. I pulled the shortest straw, so I'm going to go first. We saw this past Monday on Raw. We talked a little bit about why Kurt Angle shouldn't have turned and why maybe it should have been somebody like Chris Jericho, The Undertaker, Kane, anybody. But if you notice, The Undertaker was a little upset with Vince McMahon. He said about being there for 11 years and you never did anything with me and all you did was make me wrestle guys like Kamala and Giant Gonzalez. But the real reason The Undertaker was so upset was because of the death calendar from a few days earlier. It actually asked a question, and you knew I was going to come back to the death calendar. That's my bread and butter. I got to stick with what works. The death calendar actually listed 4 superstars. I believe Triple H, Billy Gunn, and 2 other ones. I think D'Lo was on it for some reason, even though he's not with the company. It actually said who's been in the WWF the longest, and The Undertaker, of course, was not on the list. And they said, well, Billy Gunn's been in since 1992, so he's been in the longest. How can can't you even visit a merchandise stand? You have a decade of destruction shirts. He's been there for 10 years, and you say Billy Gunn's been there for 9, well, he's been there for more. That's just ridiculous. And it goes back again to, I don't know if Kevin Kelly writes them. I don't know if Michael Cole rubs his face against them when they're done and they're fresh off the printing press. But it's completely ridiculous that Billy Gunn's actually was picked over The Undertaker's being there the longest. Just completely careless. And the other thing, real quick, back to my Canyon idea, since these guys have given me such a vote of confidence about it. I think Canyon's first interview should be directed towards Matt Hardy and say, your girlfriend has left me, or your girlfriend has left you for me, and I don't know why, because I'm not that good looking to begin with. That's it. Let me know what you think of the Canyon idea, because I might submit it to somebody important.
Hot jobs. You know, there was a lot of questions raised after this past Monday night that I'm sure a lot of people everywhere are wondering. And I think the big question that really everybody needs to answer is Plexico Burress for real? You know, he had 6 receptions for 151 yards, and you know, you draft him 8th overall in the draft, and the guy's 6'5.5", and you know, you got to figure eventually the guy's going to come into his own and start catching some footballs. So I think that's the big question that everybody has to really kind of wonder: is he for real? Is he going to keep catching? You know, because you can't rely on the running game for everything. I mean, eventually, especially a team like tomorrow with Baltimore, they're going to stack 17 guys in the box and somehow get away with it and try to stop Bettis and try to stop Zero Way. So eventually, you're going to have to throw the football. So my big prediction tomorrow: I believe the Baltimore Ravens, the Super Bowl champions, are going to fall. Steelers 16, Ravens 14. And I think the Steelers are going to have a defensive touchdown, and that's going to be that's going to seal the Ravens' fate. And Carnell Lake's going to, I don't know, something's going to happen to him. Nothing bad, but he's going to give up a major reception to Plexico Burress. That's it.
Well, I have really nothing to rant on this week, so I'm probably going to do a past rant, and I think I may or may not have ranted on this, but with all the WWF TV shows, you have Raw, you have SmackDown, you have Excess, you have the weekend shows, you have Heat, whatever the hell it is. Why not have a post-game show after Raw, after SmackDown? Maybe a half an hour, have 2 guys on it, hosting it. Have somebody come in that wrestled a match, maybe like a Mike Awesome, maybe like a Hugh Morris, to further their feud, to further their character. Maybe something you wouldn't see on Raw because of time restraints. Where, say, hypothetically speaking, Mike Awesome were to win a title. Have him on there, winning the title, show clips of it obviously, interview him, maybe further his character along, something you wouldn't see an interview on Raw after he wins the title that you never see. You never see guys that win belts on Raw or SmackDown or pay-per-views for that matter give an interview. Hey, I'm glad to have the belt, yada, yada, yada. So have a show like this. Maybe, just maybe, a post-game show after Raw. Right, Jim?
Right.
Come on, just say
Sure.
yeah. Come on, I want to get a vote of
Big
confidence.
unit.
Oh, yes.
If anyone knows about post-game shows, it's Jim.
That's right.
And Tom Jackson for that matter. But anyway, maybe just an idea for those bold and the beautiful TV writers out there that know jack
Good idea.
about anything wrestling oriented. Have a post-game show. Thank you, Jim, for the
You've
vote
shown
of
amazing
confidence.
restraint.
Yes, I have.
Now, next week, Brad, you're going to have to answer the Eddie George question.
I don't want to
We'll
get
get into
into
that later. Something happened this past Monday night, and before everybody, panics and all the other people go crazy and all the ECW leftover fans go nuts, it's okay if Rob Van Dam loses. Okay? Everybody just calm down for a few minutes. Yeah, we talked about this earlier. We kind of that match shouldn't happen, period. But I've been saying for weeks, you got to pull Rob Van Dam back. You got to let him learn a little bit. Putting him there with Edge is fine. A story would have been better, but we'll take what we can get at this point. Him losing clean, and he did lose clean, is okay. He's going to be a star. He's going to be a star if you pace him and pull him back and let him lose and let him learn. He's going to be a big star 6 months from now. It's okay. He can lose. He can learn. The only complaint I have with Monday night with that match is no story, and well, the loss is fine. Everybody relax.
Let them lose, let them learn. It sounds like a Creed song. You gonna submit that to them?
Can I sell that?
Sure.
All right.
Just flowed. Very nice.
Yeah, I tried.
I think
I guess
the
one of
cue
us
card
should.
says you.
Oh, hell. Okay, I'll talk about my
But
column.
somehow I'm in the shot. Hello.
Oh, it's that great.
My column's called Sharpshooter. You can read it in the Daily News everywhere today, or you can read it on the internet at www.dailynewsmckeesport.com, the columnist section, and it's Plexico Burris. I'm sorry.
Thanks.
Yes, it's you. You're up.
Okay. If you want to read my column, you can pick it up on the newsstands tomorrow, or you can, I think, read it on the web. It's www.triblab.com/sports. They're currently retooling the website, so I'll give you a new address when I find out where exactly you can find my column. But if you go into the search thing and type in my column, I know it's a lot of work, but do your best.
You don't need lazy people out there, Don't
It's
be lazy.
I don't know. What was that?
Go on to our website. It's prowrestlingreview.com, and I'm going to piss everybody off this week because I'm going to write about fantasy football on my page. But go on to it anyway. Write to us at prowrestlingreview@lighthouse.com, prowrestlingreview.com. You know the deal.
Our guest next week, Phil Sims.
And to answer the question of how
And
a
Josh
man,
Miller.
please. And to answer the question of how a man can star in a Keystone beer commercial and be kind to animals, I hold the answer right here.
Oh,
This is
man.
none other than, what the hell did Heenan call him? Anyway, it's none other than Bill Goldberg holding a koala bear and snuggling against his body.
Isn't he holding that? Isn't it true that he was holding that koala bear during a cockfight?
No, I'm not going to allude to that, but anyway, you should be kind to animals every day. You just don't need the one day like Earth Day to do it. And naturally, I'm being very facetious here, so let's wrap it up. It is a new addition to the show, and for me, for Jim, for Brian, and for the man who's pointing at me, what do you want?
Nothing.
This is Pro Wrestling Review, and be kind to people, and animals for that matter. We'll see you.